if our voices and dreams matter, how do we prepare for a future we won't be around to see? We each have an influence on the quality of breath and self-respect the next generation has. Some of us won't have a choice but to use our voice. Having community to count on, respect us and check us is how we'll be able to flourish despite the adversity and odds against us. And I know something as simple as beauty is a confusing matter. How it turns up in the most terrible tempers, terrors, and disasters. How it folds the spirit in, causing a critical conundrum. But if only a glimpse of it exists, it is that very glimpse of brilliance that unsilences the echoes of the change makers, the groundbreakers, the devourers of the midnight hours pushing pen in hand across the page. Under pressure, precious moments we manifest. We be the wires that sputter, them specks and sparks of light. Because even if a speck is all you can find, it will always be enough to ignite our most creative voices and minds.
Thank you so much, Britta, for that great performance. My name is Christine Allen. I'm the Associate Vice President and Vice Provost Strategic Initiatives at the University of Toronto. Also a professor in the Faculty of Pharmacy. I've been at the University of Toronto for almost 20 years, and I've been energized and inspired by the breadth and depth of research excellence in so many areas across our institution. The Strategic Initiatives portfolio is supporting the development, launch, and sustainability of large research networks that bring researchers together from different disciplines to address the grand challenges of our time. Things like climate change, social justice, infectious diseases. And we also have our Indigenous Research Network and our Black Research Network that are supporting, enhancing, and celebrating Indigenous and Black research excellence. What makes the University of Toronto's Strategic Initiatives portfolio unique is that we put collaboration at the forefront. Collaboration across our entire community, which includes faculty, staff, and students, and then collaboration with industry partners, government, and community organizations. Working together, we then have an opportunity to really hit grand challenges head on. So today we're introducing the first episode in the Groundbreakers series. I am so excited about this series because it celebrates the people behind the research and the ideas that they're working to make come to life. Enjoy our first episode on stopping the next pandemic, and stay tuned for future episodes that will be coming your way.
The next pandemics, the next epidemics, the next outbreaks or challenges that we have, they're going to start around the world where people are pushing into what were natural areas before.
So when I think about containment labs, I think about hazardous materials, people in suits, biomaterials. Can you talk about what actually goes on in the containment lab at U of T, and how is it that the containment lab was ready to take on a pandemic?
The CL3 lab is really two things. The first is the physical structure, which is a laboratory environment that's biosafe and biosecure. So the number one thing is to keep the people safe that are working with the pathogens, and the other is to make sure those pathogens never leave there. And then the other part of the CL3 is really the people, and this is the expertise that goes into handling these pathogens. And we were able to respond to the COVID pandemic, for example, because we had the facility operating. But as much as that, we had expertise that was able to work with these types of pathogens. We had trainees, senior graduate students, we had postdocs, we had research associates, we had technicians who were studying other pathogens. So they were not studying SARS coronavirus 2 because we'd never heard of it before.
Pat, you've been telling me that you've been working with the CL3 facility for a while now. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so initially in the level 3, I actually was an HIV researcher. So I was part of Mario Ostrovsky's lab, and there I was doing a bunch of patient-based analysis. So the day-to-day at the very beginning was very, very brutal. Constantly monitoring all the samples every 12 hours just to make sure, to see what's happening. It was very crucial to figure out the timelines on how fast this virus replicates in the samples. When it comes to SARS-2, everything that we did basically led to some kind of change. It really kind of reinvigorated me seeing that all of these things that I do day to day, it actually translated, and you can actually see people and doctors making decisions based on our data.
When the first people in Canada became infected with COVID, these people were treated in hospitals within Toronto. And so the research group that was up at Sunnybrook Hospital was able to work with virologists at McMaster University in Hamilton and come down and work with our investigators in the CL3 lab to isolate this virus from these patient samples, from swabs that were obtained from these patients. And this was important because it let us start working with the virus almost as soon as it appeared in Canada.
Protected, code blue. Attention please, protected, code blue.
Can you talk about the Emerging Pandemic Infections Consortium and how did Sunnybrook become a part of this?
Sure. EPIC is something that we were involved in through our containment level 3 work, but also by virtue of the work that we're doing here at Sunnybrook. So EPIC involves not only University of Toronto, but all the hospital research institutes as well. The main bridge between those two are the patient samples. Isolating that virus from one of the patients here at Sunnybrook, or here from Sunnybrook, was really the first step. Without that virus, there's very little that you can do. First of all, we wanted to understand the biology of the virus, what it's doing to cells, including immune cells, what it does in different animal models. But also you need the virus to be able to develop what we call medical countermeasures. So those are things like vaccines, antivirals, antibodies, all of those things that we're now using to fight SARS coronavirus 2 and the COVID-19 pandemic.
Can you tell me what you're excited about in terms of the research work that you're doing at Sunnybrook Hospital?
Sure. So where we're standing right now is Shared Hospital Lab. So this is the diagnostic lab. So at the peak, we're probably testing around 7,000 samples a day. So my role has really been around genomics. What this means is that we're able to look at the viral genome from very beginning to very end, cover to cover. A lot of the work we do is highly concentrated in the containment level 3 facility. So we've been looking specifically at transmission of the variants of concern. So pretty early in 2021, we really focused on isolating those variants. And we've been using those viruses to look at transmission and to share with others like we did the first one. This is the first coronavirus pandemic. It won't be the last. And I think we really need to have a firm appreciation of just virology. Like, what are these viruses actually doing at the cellular level, at the individual host level, and at the global level? We really need to be looking and preparing.
What's your vision for the lab of the future, and how are we going to see this play out in the new facility that's being built?
The University of Toronto and its hospital partners are coming together to build an incredible new facility that will increase the capacity, the ability of the number of people that can work in this facility, the types of things that we can do because of the technology that's brought in, but also it handles things differently. It's subdivided differently in others. Individual groups can be working with different pathogens at the same time, and there's that extra level of security there.
We know it takes a village to come up with new discoveries, to do the research, to find things like new vaccines. Can you talk about the importance of having the clinician, the engineer, the chemist kind of all working on one research project, and what does that sort of community collaboration bring to some of the work that you're trying to do here?
So with the specific example of the Emerging and Pandemic Infections Consortium, this is people who had not thought about infectious disease, many of them before. They were mathematical modelers or chemists or others. And what we're trying to do is keep the momentum going and really be hopeful about the future. As this EPIC community comes together, we want them to be thinking about infection broadly. We want them to be thinking about the molecular biology that goes behind that. We want them to be thinking about aerosol transmission. We want them to be thinking about structural biology and developing new vaccines. We want them to be thinking about clinical intervention. And then even beyond that, the public policy and dealing with how do we roll out vaccines for everybody, how do we decide who gets vaccines, how do we manufacture these things, what are regulatory processes to get something approved to actually use it in humans so that we can be surveying the world and looking for the potential dangers that are emerging. And so if we can keep everyone working together, we can really be much more quickly responsive.